Yo, 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 hello, and welcome to episode 234 of the FReality Podcast, a podcast featuring the latest news and information from our beloved VR industry. As for our topics, first, some new headsets announced, and some competitors are now cutting down their prices. Second, Adam Bombardi takes the Pimax Crystal for a ride, a review. And last, Meta Connect in person FOMO, we get it. But not to play the devil's advocate, but isn't that the vision and future Meta wants in the first place? Or not? More on that later. First off, get ready for a colossal collision of creativity and chaos. It's time to step into the virtual ring and introduce to you the one and only, the explosive sensation of mixed reality content creation, the mastermind behind the mayhem, the one who loves zombies, holiday vibes, and a dash of controlled chaos. She's the Atom Bomb Body. Hailing from the digital realm, this content creator extraordinaire is here to blow your mind and bring the virtual world to life like never before. With a passion for mixing reality and unreality, she's not just a creator, she's a content creating commander. Yeah.
Dang.
How are you, Adam?
That was so I didn't know what to expect.
I'm
I
so
didn't know what to
excited for
expect.
my one.
Man, okay, I am so proud of you. That was a great intro. That was like, I feel awake now. Like,
I'll tell you later what I used.
okay, but I besides Starfield, I have to do the VR stuff too. I can't just play flat screen all day every day. I've been actually getting into co-op VR stuff because I'm not a PvP population one battle royale kind of person. I really, really love good co-op games. And so over the past 2 weeks, I've tried Dungeons of Eternity early, but I can talk about it, I'm pretty sure, hopefully. I played that with Genghis and Tatiana a couple days ago. And then I tried Hellsweeper VR, which came out, yesterday or day before yesterday or something like that. And I liked both of them, but the multiplayer co-op for both, I not beggars can't be choosers, but I really wish it was like campaign co-op, so for both of these, it's more like you go in and there's different modes. So like, right. You got your typical like survive mode, waves of enemies, or like different objectives. Like for Dungeons of Eternity, you have to kill enough enemies to gather batteries to be able to power up this robot, or even for Hellsweeper VR, which I had a hard time at first. So if you have the same bug that I did where you can't find any friends because you put in their friend code, and it's like failed to add friend.
So yeah, that's my life.
Failed to add friend, just like in real life, right? We had to do the thing where it's like you count down, you go in Discord and you count down from 3, and then you click quick join at the same time and pray that you get the same lobby. And eventually it worked, and then that seemed to fix our then we could add each other as friends for whatever reason. But nice. Yeah, they're both, I liked both of them because, again, co-op, but I wish that you could do like story with them, like Carnage Chronicles. I think Carnage Chronicles I still hold near and dear to my heart. And even the first Arizona Sunshine, because you could do the campaign. So I don't know, we'll see. I like them, but I think my expectations were a little higher in terms of what you could do with your friends versus just modes and dungeony style, like join and leave. It's like I want to go through a story. So we'll see.
So lame. We don't see that as much, like multiplayer co-op games in VR.
Yeah, I mean, well, what worries me is Hellsweeper's done by Vertigo, and then Vertigo's Arizona Sunshine 2, but the first one had story co-op, so yeah. I hope they don't cheat it for the second one and just be like, oh, it's just, here's waves of zombies, kill them together. Yeah. Like, no, I want to go through this damn campaign. I want to go through the story with my friend. And they both have dogs, right? And I don't know if there's like a leveling up system in Hellsweeper, so I don't know if you can actually both get the dog eventually. Like it's gonna take me a long time just to get to level 2. It's you get a very small amount of XP per win. It's kind of you go from like, you kill the enemies in this one, then you get a boss at the end, sort of a thing. There's loot chests that you can unlock during each map. But by the end, even if you complete it, it's like, oh, you have like, maybe 5% out of 100% of the the full circle to get to level 2. And I'm like, oh God, geez. So I haven't gone that far yet to see, get more of the unlocks or know if you both have dogs at the same time. Because that's my priority. I was like, can we both have dogs in co-op? Or is that
Can the dogs be different? Do you know? Are the dogs different, or is it the same?
I don't know. I mean, at least for players, like you can customize your avatar. You can unlock different masks and like the little your veins glow, so you can have different like vein glow colors and a couple other things that I forget. But yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. I please, if somebody from Vertigo or the Arizona Sunshine 2 team is listening, please allow us to do co-op campaign with our friends. I would love that, please.
All right, nice. That's awesome, Adam. All right, so
I'm gonna get my introduction now, but I swear if it's just gonna be like, oh yeah, and Rowdy's here too, then I'm gonna be pissed.
Oh no, listen. Gather around, everyone, gather around, because it's time to step into the digital squared circle and meet a true titan of the tech world. He's the brainiac brawler, the coding warrior, the one who bridges the gap between the virtual and the machine. Introducing Rowdy. Hailing from the far reaches of cyberspace, Rowdy isn't just a computer scientist, he's an AI aficionado. And he's here to prove that knowledge is power when it comes to virtual reality and content creation, and most of all, audio wizardry. He's not just an expert, he's an innovator. Rowdy, my man, what's new with you, my guy?
Man, this week I bought a new mouse.
Let's go.
And that's honestly that is my highlight. That's honestly my highlight this week. I know it sounds stupid, but there's two things that I never save on when I buy a computer. That's a keyboard and a mouse, and kind of also a screen, I guess. I mean, because you need a proper screen. And I mean, I know it sounds silly, buying a mouse and making a highlight out of this, but the previous mouse that I had, and the mouse that I still have, which I love, is this Logitech. It's the G502 Lightspeed.
The G502.
Brilliant mouse.
Mine is wired though, so I can't show you. But...
Really good. It's a pure gaming mouse, this one. Like, I mean, you can work it for like, you can use it for work and that kind of stuff, and it's very comfortable. And all the buttons on there are great for like gaming if you're doing any kind of like RTS, or like you're doing some kind of like Diablo style, or you're doing Age of Empire, whatever it is. Then all those buttons are nice. The only annoying thing is that, as some of you might know, I switched to a Mac workstation not that long ago. And working with a Mac in this is not really the greatest experience, also because it's a USB. Like you don't have USB ports on a mouse anymore that are large. The type, was it type 2.0, type 3.0? You only have the USB-Cs. So that doesn't make this like a really great, I need to buy like a plug for it. I need to buy like an adapter, and then like the features, because the mouse trackpad of like the Apple is so good, you kind of get used to working with that. So I was looking for a mouse, and I don't like the Magic Mouse from Apple. I just don't like it. If I have to work on that for like hours, I get like this like weird claw finger, and like it just like starts hurting. And also, if you need to charge it, you can't use the mouse while you're charging it, which is just stupid. I mean, I don't think that's a good thing. And then you have the trackpad as well that you can buy externally from Apple, which is great, but really expensive. And it's just a trackpad, like it doesn't give you some of the features that I like about a mouse. So the mouse that I bought, here it comes, is the MX Master 3S. And it's a really nice mouse. Like, it's such a good mouse. So not only does it have a scroller on the top, but it also has like a scroller on the side here. So I can scroll with this as well. So it allows you to do these like kind of flicks with your screen, like to the left and to the right. And then also it has, so it's a Bluetooth mouse. So you can connect to it with Bluetooth, which makes it easier for me because I now have 3 workstations. I have a Windows PC, I have a Linux workstation, which I use for my heavy loads, and now I also have a Mac system. So this now has a little button here on the bottom that automatically lets you link 3 different workstations to this. So this is perfect for me. My keyboard has it as well. It's a Bluetooth keyboard. It's a Keychron mechanical keyboard. Love that keyboard, and allows me to connect 3 workstations as well. So the only thing, I have 1 screen set up, but that screen now allows me to connect to 3 different workstations. And I've used tools like Synology and Synergy and these kind of things before that kind of like helped out, but they're not like, because sometimes you get a little bit of a stutter, you know, like when you're going, and like that just freaks me out when I'm working, like if I'm trying to do stuff with my mouse. So like this mouse, the MX Master 3S is it's a beast. It really is. Like it has up to 8,000 DPI as well, so it's like you can really fine tune that. And it works brilliant across all of my different workstations.
And it's local too, which is so much better, because you mentioned Synology, and it's so true that the latency can become a problem when you're just like in, you know, focus mode, and then your mouse just starts freaking out on you when you're just trying to open or minimize a window. So I get that, dude. That's a badass mouse.
If people are looking for a mouse, it's not much more expensive than, I think the Magic Mouse is like 110 or something that you have, and I think this one was 120 Canadian dollars. So it's not too expensive for a mouse either. And I really have to say, like, I'm loving this. It's also like the way that it's made, like it's very ergonomical with like this little rest pad that you have here. So it feels great as well. Yeah. Great mouse.
That's probably the cost right there, the 3D printing that specific mold.
Yeah, exactly. and it's specifically made with like macOS in mind as well. So you have all of those swipes from like the left and the right, and you have like a middle mouse button that lets you like swipe everything up, and like, so it really like improves your workflow if you're using a macOS system as well. And you can fine tune it for specific applications as well. So for example, if you want your scroller to work differently in, for example, Excel, or work differently in Firefox or Safari or Chrome, then whatever, you can set that up as well. So yeah, that's my highlight. I bought a mouse.
Man, that is a highlight. I'm like, man, that is.
I do have one. I know that Zim is not here since he's been like traveling. I don't know if you have an intro for him too.
I do. We should
okay.
probably address that.
Let's, because he did send me a highlight as well. So I'm definitely going to show that.
So go for the Zim.
So Zim, the power streamer himself, is currently at an undisclosed location in Calabasas, California, United States, where he is in what the public only knows as the, quote, meat ranch, where the top most formidable fighters and trained martial artists gather and train for underground tech billionaire fights. Zim has officially joined the Mark Zuckerberg fight camp as part of his commitments as Meta ambassador, and is helping Team Mark and Team Boz cut down to fighting weight for the upcoming Meta Connect. We hear they're throwing all kinds of punches and kicks. Zim, can't wait for your return next podcast for you to take over and share with us all the highlights from Meta Connect.
Yeah. So actually, I mean, to be honest, he's just in jail, but no.
He can't object.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, Zim, but like maybe he'll be back. You know, like maybe he'll have a little bit of a different environment, or we see him in a couple of months looking a bit more buff.
Here was trying to make a good elaborate line, and here comes Rowdy. Like, no, he's arrested. The man.
Yeah, it's all over, all downhill from here.
All over.
Anyway, so he sent me a message a couple of days ago, and I'm just gonna read the message because it made me laugh, because it was like a typical Zim message. So he said, "Hey Rowdy, I know I'm not there for the podcast, but I wanted to leave you a completely odd little shout out to Karam, who runs 5Rs. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, FIVARS or 5Rs. Yes. Yeah. So this was from his showcase last weekend, and it was so artsy that Blair had to leave the room. So you know Blair from Lo-Fi? Yeah, there we go. So even like, he's a very artistic person. He makes amazing stuff, and even he found it too artsy, so apparently had to leave the room. I nearly cracked up laughing too. Now I know why people snickered at SoundSelf, where I was moaning on the floor in an empty room. Again, like, I don't know if all of this is true, but yeah, there we go. In the chair. So I'm gonna show a little video actually, because he showed me a little video. He didn't show it to you guys, so it's kind of fun. So, but anyway, so wait, can you see it?
There we go.
There we go.
All right. There we go. All right.
Wait, so what is this? What am I looking at again? Or I don't know if you know, because you're not Zim, but
I'm not Zim. I'm not Zim. But he said
we all try though.
This looks like Jizzy Arms, but real life.
So in the chair is Amy, who helps to put on the show, and he also spoke to the artists afterwards, and he said exactly that as well. So where it looks ridiculous from the outside, but it's transcendent inside of VR. So you can see this person sitting in the chair and she's being like moved around and like grabbed, and like some person's like dancing. But the funniest part is just the people sitting around there watching it. You know, that's That's probably what, like, I also be like, yep, nope, I'm out. This is too much for me. But I just love how they're sitting there watching this person
politely, yeah.
in VR, and they're probably wondering, like, what is going on here? And the person who's sitting in the chair, she's having this like wonderful experience because she's also like, you can see her like smiling, and she's like turning her head to the left and turning her head to the right. And I think it's like in sync with like because the woman is wearing headphones, the woman behind her who's like doing all the movements. So I think she like knows what is going on, and sometimes like, you know, like touches her like on the side, and she's like, oh yeah, I can feel that. And that probably is in sync with like the video itself. So yeah, that was just kind of funny.
I wonder if this is more of a performance art.
Oh yeah,
or like,
it's definitely performance art. Yeah.
I feel like it's a solo activity. As a spectator, this is a strange.
I think it's functionality being disguised as performance art, because there's parts where she has like I don't know if it's like a blanket or pillows around the person in the headset. So I think that they're just making the person feel that way. So instead of just walking up to the person and putting a pillow over it, they're like, let me just dance around them. And then, you know, like I feel like the performance is hiding it all. It's similar, funny enough, you mentioned jizzy arms, but that's...
It must have been weird too, because you can't like be like talking to someone or like shouting, so you have to just watch there in silence, watch this person have like a VR transcendent experience, like completely out of herself. Interesting.
I don't do well, to be honest. This really highlights that I don't do well in mature art like installations like this. I would be so immature, laughing and cracking up. Like I love technology, I love art, I love the dance among it all, but it's just this is too real.
Exactly. So Blair is in the chat as well, because I saw him saying that there's also like this weird loop music from them howling into a microphone.
Oh no,
that's true. Like I didn't put the audio on, of course, now because we're talking over it and stuff. But indeed, if you have the audio version, there's this like weird like howl that's going in the background. I mean, it's not for me, but
can you try to make the howl?
Yeah, wait.
So the audio listeners can.
No, I don't know. I can't do it. I'm just pretending.
I felt immersed for a second. I'm not gonna lie. I was immersed there.
Just close your eyes and you'll get it.
I don't know if I ever will.
No, that's a highlight. And of course, chat, thanks for coming out. And anything highlighting there? And as we read the chat highlight, I'm Jose, the VR tech, a wild, loud, and smart, if I do say so myself, an entrepreneurial mastermind focused on VR adoption and all the business mechanisms behind it all. And my main highlight this week has been busy work. Like, quite honestly, just busy.
I thought you were still about work. Jizzy. I thought, jizzy arms.
Jizzy work, busy work. I'm at the point where I don't know which one's which, to be honest. It's just, I have been nonstop the last 3 weeks to the month. I've been nonstop having meetings, and they're exciting ones, right? It means the industry's coming back. So now, for the last week, I've just been working and just looking forward to doing nothing at the end of the day. So it's literally what I've been doing. It's just staring at screens, watching TV shows, just turning my brain absolutely off. I've been watching For All Humanity. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that show. It's an Apple TV exclusive, I think.
Gross. No, I'm just kidding. No, I haven't.
It is. I was kind of grossed out too by the name, but it's like this super. I call it This Is Us for nerds.
Wait, how's it called?
This Is Us. For All Humanity. Rowdy, you're gonna love this premise. It's essentially, what if the space race never ended, in fact accelerated when it started? So what if the USS, the Russians started, going head toe to toe on Mars? What if the moon landing was done by the Russians before America, and all the politics behind it and the bureaucracy? It's such a great, inspiring show, because you always think about like, what if space exploration never really stopped? But there's realities of physics.
It never did stop, right?
It never did stop, right? That's true. But I'm talking about like actual living on the base and building what we're now trying to see, Elon do with SpaceX. And I don't want to spoil too much.
Even though, going to the moon was a great achievement, it's not like it was very useful, right? You know, like it would have been better if they would have just like, you know, sent like a like a sampler or something and brought it back.
And this show highlights this in such a powerful way because they go into, it's a very scattered throughout time and connecting these astronauts. So they don't give you kind of the boring stuff through a show. They give you the highlights. Right. And in this, they give you a lot of good reasons why space exploration should have never stopped, right? A lot of potentially world-saving scenarios happen early in the show, like solar storms, and they're not protected by Earth. They're like right at the surface of the moon, so they show the horrors of that. And one important scene of season 1 that I kind of a spoiler, but it's not a big one, that kind of locked me in is they enter the 80s with a rocket that looks a lot like the big rocket from SpaceX, the one that can carry like pretty much, it's the biggest rocket ever seen.
The penis
so
one?
They kind of, the Venus. So they take off to the moon with that one. So they kind of let you, just your brain just goes into imagination. So it's, man, getting ready for a very busy fall, and that's my highlight. So
that is for all mankind.
For all mankind, I highly recommend. So if you guys have Apple TV,
aliens? Any aliens? No aliens?
No aliens. Just some good old Americans versus Russians.
This is almost, it's very good if you're playing Starfield right now too, I feel like.
Yes.
I mean, Starfield goes after, people already developed gravity drive and all that, but I feel like this would be a good period, like when they're starting to, if they, I don't know. It feels like perfect. I want to watch it now, maybe even though it's on Apple TV.
I can't wait to talk to you about this show. It's really good. It's one of those shows that it flies under the radar because there's a lot of investment because they're kind of making with these astronauts, and you kind of get bored really early in the first few episodes, but then you start realizing, oh, wait a minute, these guys are taking straight up life or death missions, and just all the strings behind it all. Definitely recommend.
So is it set in the future or is it set in the past?
It's in the past. So it starts off in the early 50s. So right up to 1969. That's first one, right? So 1969 happens, but in a different. In 1969, they like fail
timeline.
Getting into So that's where the timeline split, which is America landing onto the moon. They were pulled back, and the Russians landed, and this is where it gets cool. It was a first woman on the moon, and it was a Russian woman. Snap. And so you always think about, and you said it yourself, is we didn't find anything interesting on the moon, and we stopped. But what would have happened if a Russian woman landed on the moon, and all of a sudden the politics behind putting a woman on the moon and being first into space, the conversations behind that were so disruptive that the United States just pushed aggressively towards space. It's really cool.
It's not that I think that we didn't find anything interesting on the moon. What I'm saying is that it was more like a personal achievement from the US to put a person on the moon, but that money probably would have been better spent in the missions that they did afterwards when they started sending rovers and sending equipment in order to do particular tests, and those kind of things are probably more beneficial. But of course, the idea of putting a person on the moon is something that probably drove a lot of funding towards that particular branch of research. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome. Anything from the chat, guys? Anything we can highlight here? What's the chat up to?
Someone mentioned the Portal 2 VR mod, which I haven't tried yet, but I really want to. Have you tried it?
I haven't, but I've seen some gameplay, and it's what I like about the mention of Portal is I don't know about you guys, but Portal is like a really dear game to me, and it's just seeing this new generation just embrace this game, and probably what could be such a cool way to play it for the first time. Man, I really wish I could have tried that.
I was telling my husband about this, and he was like, imagine if, say, Deckard launches or whatever, and their flagship, instead of Half-Life Alyx, is some kind of, Portal 3. And imagine the co-op, that would come with that. Because Portal 2 had good co-op, too. I know we're taking this back,
Portal 2
but,
amazing, yeah.
The co-op was so good and so cute, and it's just like everything was great about it. But I don't know. I don't want to give false hope to all of us because I think we're just.
That's what this show is all about, you know.
False hope, copium. That's what. If we don't do it, who else will? So, question: Portal 1 ending song or Portal 2 ending song?
I don't remember them. I can't answer that.
Maybe.
Oh, really?
Maybe 2. So only because I'm gonna be biased though, because it's not the song, but I like GLaDOS's form in 2 a little better.
Yeah,
she's like.
Yeah, she was cool in 2.
But I don't know. I mean, they're both by the same singer.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's just, the lyrics are different. I don't know. So maybe I'm a little bit more biased towards 2 just because of how she looks. But they're both good.
And shout out to Jonathan Colton. Like, that's like, I don't know if he's still making music, but like that guy just making like really good nerdy music. It's just ace. But yeah, so let's get on with the news. First up, we got Neuralink in the news. It looks like Neuralink is recruiting for a human trial for its brain-computer interface.
Is this what we were talking about before, where in order to get this implanted, you actually need, does it go like under the skin in your head? Well, maybe it has to touch the brain? I don't know. I'm not good at smart stuff.
Rowdy, you want to read the first paragraph of this article? Maybe this will answer Adam's...
Wait, did you send me this article too?
Yes, it's The Verge. Let me send you The Verge one also.
Because I'm wondering, like, it's so... I don't know. All I know is I'm not going to be the first volunteer test subjects. I'll let other people do that first.
Rowdy's pulling it up on the screen now. So let's see here.
It's a moment.
But it looks like it. Go ahead. No.
Do you want me to read it out?
Just the first paragraph.
Yeah, sure. So a few months after getting FDA approval for human trials, Neuralink is looking for its first test subjects. The 6-year initial trial, which the Elon Musk-owned company is calling the PRIME study, is intended to test Neuralink tech designed to help those with paralysis-controlled devices. The company is looking for people with quadriplegia due to vertical spinal cord injury or ALS who are over the age of 22 and have a consistent and reliable caregiver to be part of the study. So, pretty stringent requirements.
Okay, that makes sense. At least it's for people who, could benefit, not just from people who want cool tech in their head.
Typically, with these kind of clinical trials, this is for people who have gone through so much, different kind of things already that are recognized as, for example, treatments or recognized as particular things, but they haven't worked. So they're kind of outside of that realm of people that for which the thing that already exists works. So they can then qualify for a clinical trial if they meet all of the requirements of that clinical trial. So it's the only saying here, of course, the inclusion criteria, but they probably have a ton of exclusion criteria as well. Very often you see these kind of like mood disorders or a specific kind of medication. When you're taking these kind of things, and you're probably already excluded because they want to see the effect specifically in people that are matching very stringent criteria. So that's typically how that works.
Would you try it if it wasn't so strict? Like, do you think there is a use?
Yeah. This is, I mean, I know, like, I know that Elon Musk portrays this as some kind of like tech that is going to be implanted into regular people, but we are very far away from that. And the devices that they're making, these brain implants and under the skin implants, they've existed for a very long time. I've worked on those myself even, where it was a preclinical trial, so it was with rats, but where we installed these kind of brain modulators into the brains of rats. And those kind of things are very common in, for example, Parkinson's disease, or any kind of like dopaminergic kind of diseases where you want to stimulate a specific part of the brain using electrical stimulation. And very often, even though this is invasive surgery, and I mean, they're not just going to give this to everyone, because whatever you do when it's invasive surgery in the brain, you will be damaging part of the brain, which, by the way, is not as troublesome as it sounds, because still even though neurons don't get replaced, the connections between those neurons are far more important than the cells themselves often. So the connections themselves, your brain is very plastic. So even if you have brain injury and a part of your brain literally dies off, you're going to have to go through a recovery period. But very often what you see is for at least partially of those functions, you retrieve those through exercise and rewiring and retraining your brain in order to overcome that. Of course, losing neurons is never a good thing. You don't want to get those kind of things. That's why these kind of, even if this, is very minimal invasive, there is no way, I think at least, unless they don't go into the brain and just go onto the surface area or connect to the top part, which is the cortical areas, which is likely what they're doing here, is because they're looking more for paralysis control. And the motor cortex is situated more centrally over the middle of the brain. So you have a motor area there, which is cortical. But in many of the diseases that for example, depression or neurological diseases or Parkinson or dementia, they're often located or start deeper within the brain, within the thalamical regions, the amygdala, those kind of regions, which are only reachable if you either go through or under, but you have to pass through certain regions in order to get there. So many of the deep brain stimulation techniques that we have for those specific regions, they are inserted from the top down with a very thin needle going to a specific region. And that is done we've been doing that for a very long period. And that is for specifically electrically stimulating the brain. And there's some really cool videos on that online as well. If you, for example, the Parkinson tremor that people have, and they have this little device implanted, and the device is not on, and you see their tremor, and they literally turn the device on, and that starts stimulating, their region of the brain where they have that dopamine release. And you'll see that tremor just like disappear within a matter of seconds. It's really impressive to see that kind of stuff. So these kind of implants have been around for a very long time, have been FDA approved. Of course, only when medication does not work, only when like all of those exclusion criteria don't apply. When the inclusion criteria do apply, then you see those those implants happening. The brain-computer interfaces, they're more cortical, or they're more like on the head itself. If you don't have a lot of hair, those kind of things. They're more like research grade, I would say. But still, like if you need to start drilling into a skull, getting FDA approval is a big thing already for that. Yeah, but bringing that just like in like a regular, person, that's definitely not FDA approved.
Yeah, it's so interesting you said that, because it's so true, especially, and it obviously makes sense that they're trying to get investors' attention and get publicity. But there's also the part that scares me the most is one of the things that I remember from very early on, and this is outside of implants, is that I always remember hearing certain, like the body, you never really know what kind of implant or add-on or additive your body will resonate to, right? I remember that being a thing. I think like transplants are one of those things that come to mind, that there's certain like blood types, and I also like they have to put your medication because your body might reject the organ entirely. And I also have seen that, and I seen that also with like earrings and piercings, and it
tattoos.
Tattoos are a big one. How do you anticipate, or is there a way to know if your body is not going to just straight up go? And the reason I'm highlighting
waivers.
This, and not to get to more, but besides the waivers, is the morbidity, the morbid side of it all. Because I have seen some articles, because I think it's important to highlight, is that it hasn't been sugar and rainbows for Neuralink. I have seen videos that they try to suppress heavily about some animals that are being tested on this stuff rejecting. There was one that was quite graphic. I saw a report that they saw like a chimpanzee like scratching its head like on the floor until it passed, because of the pain was just different and foreign. It wasn't necessarily painful. It just felt foreign to the point that the animal didn't know how to react.
Yeah, I guess because you could feel it and you can't get rid of it, and so it's kind of like that would drive you crazy over time. I wonder.
You don't have any pain sensors in the brain itself, of course. So you would not feel pain within those areas. Also
Is it
important
pressure?
to note, huh?
Would
Well,
it
I
be
mean-
more like a pressure against the back of the head then that they would be potentially feeling, or like?
Well, after the surgery or something, yeah, of course, then you'll feel it. But for example, what they do with open brain surgery is they do that awake, of course. So they only use anesthesia to do awake surgery.
Oh, yeah.
But
weird.
because you can't do because everyone's brain is a little bit different. So what they do is they use electrical pulses to stimulate or deactivate certain portions of the brain. And a person has to be talking. For example, he has to talk about, when he was a child, and all of a sudden he'll lose speech. So all of a sudden,
Wow.
and then they know.
I've seen this.
So that area is, where the speech is located, and they map that, this and that. So they know that before they insert these kind of things, which areas they need to avoid and which areas they can go through. Yeah. And
Man,
for core
that's-
motor functions or for core
Yeah.
verbal functions, you don't want to lose those, of course. But like I said, like this is like, even though Neuralink is this big company and everyone's always talking about Neuralinks, but I know that brain computer interfaces, they've been, I think it was a company in Australia that did that before. That was in 2021, I believe, where they already implanted brain-computer interfaces in patients themselves. So this is like, of course, like Neuralink. Everybody always talks about Neuralink because of the way that Elon Musk portrays this. Like, everyone is going to be wearing these kind of devices very soon. That's of course not the real story. This is a very big research group across the world that has been working on this, and I personally don't think that Neuralink at this point, at least, is leading that research. I think there are other companies that are probably a little bit further ahead in that particular regard.
Man, that's so rad.
I feel itchy now. I know you can't feel it, but now I suddenly feel itchy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's just the idea of having something, like, I love the advantages of having something foreign inside of your body that could like enhance you, but also the idea of not knowing what that device could do to your body eventually, or if it could be overwritten, or I get into like the weird
Sci-fi
hacky
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
When it
want to be
comes to
doing
that
that with your brain, though. Although there's a lot of people doing that too with direct current stimulation, right? Where they place electrodes on their brain and like put an electrode here, put an electrode there, and they drive a current through their brain to activate, certain parts in order to become more focused. There's a ton of videos of people doing that as well, putting voltages through their brain.
Oh
I don't
man,
know
if
about
I
that.
come next podcast sounding like Einstein,
just, like,
then you
wired
know,
up.
my hair's all like burnt.
No, but you can look that up. Like if you type it on YouTube, like direct current stimulation. I would not recommend anyone to do it because also I think it has been FDA approved for specific kind of conditions, but the research in that is very fluid. Like there's not really. Some people say it works. Some people say it doesn't. Some people says maybe it works for some things, and you have a very large placebo effect, of course. Like so.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
man.
pass. I'm good.
Yeah, you know what?
Okay.
We'll revisit this one when they go to mass public. All right. So up next topic we have Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle is back with their Get Your Head in the Game VR game bundle. Let me post a link in the chat here. Adam, you want to read their description here real quick? Let me send it to you.
Yeah. Humble Bundle is so great, especially for some of those titles that you haven't bought, but you're like, I'll do it one day. Okay, awesome. Do you want me to read off the games that we have listed?
Yeah, that sounds good with me because honestly, I felt the same way. Like I don't want to be mean to the Humble Bundle, but I felt like their packages last few times has been kind of the same releases over and over. So this is definitely a bundle that it feels refreshed, even though they got Zero Caliber in there. I feel like that one always is in every single bundle. They try to get rid of those keys.
So they have of course, like if you buy 3, buy 6, buy 8, different pricing. So they have the 3 for $12 American dollars, and that one's got Zero Caliber, Rick and Morty Virtual Reality. Well, that's an older one, but it's funny if you like Rick and Morty, and Stride. And then the 6th item, of course, 16 at least, includes those 3 plus Propagation Paradise Hotel. Great scary game. I Expect You to Die 2. Great puzzle game. And then After the Fall, which I also love. Good co-op on that one. And then the 8-item bundle, which is all of those, plus Grimlord, Demio, plus and Demio, which I think Demio for $24. Demio plus Propagation Hotel, I Expect to Die 2. I think out of all of them, those are my favorite on the list, and that's well worth like over $25 if you were to get them separately. So good deal.
Nice.
Fact, and I just noticed that they highlighted I don't know if maybe it was just a last add-on, but I do know that the original Stride game, I don't know if they reversed that, but they were making people repurchase the new updates, like Fates, I think it's called, Stride Fates, yeah. And I think that was a whole new release, and it looks like that's the actual release that's on the package itself, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, sweet. So you're going to get Propagation Hotel, right? Or Propagation Paradise Hotel?
No, right? I see people play it. I shout out to the guys at Wanna Dev Studios. Love those guys, but I'm too scared, man. I can't do it. Like those guys over there, they make fun of me all the time I talk to them, man. Like, they're like, "You gonna try our games?"
Hey,
like,
as long as you're quiet, supposedly the zombies can't see you. So just shh, and then you'll be fine, probably. Just don't panic. Don't panic, and you'll be fine.
Do I seem like a quiet person, Adam? even my thinking is loud. Oh man. So what next topic? Anything with the chat, guys? Let's see here.
Don't mind me trying to fix my.
Just some love for the Humble Bundle.
Over here.
Yeah, people I saw Anders VR Case said that he loves Humble Bundle. So yeah, that's pretty great.
They've been going in strong for quite a while. Like I would probably have half the Steam collection if it wasn't for Humble Bundle. Like I every time I see a Humble Bundle, I tend to buy it if it's a PC or VR release. Sometimes I have the games. I probably should start just posting keys away because I have so many keys of the same game. I probably have like 30 like Zero Caliber keys. So maybe help them out, give those keys away. All right.
You do see those a lot from streamers where they're like, I have all these extra games and here, you take them. Do you have this one? What about this one?
It's so good. I always, speaking of keys, I remember, I don't know if that's like a really big active community, but I remember that was like what made like Team Fortress back in the day when you can like give keys away. I don't know if you can do keys anymore, but it was items on Steam. But I remember there was like a brief point where I think they flirted with gifting keys that you had in your inventory, but then they got removed fairly fast because I think people were like hacking and stealing accounts. But yeah, up next, a really interesting announcement I definitely want to bring up that I'm really, really excited about. Resonite, built by the former team behind Neos VR, most of the brain power behind Neos rather, has announced a October release. They have added, I'll read this real quick, because it made me really excited.
This is like the lead dev, not like, so there's TLDR on the Neos drama. The CEO and I believe like the lead dev had a falling out because the CEO just had really interesting visions and a lot of NFT involved stuff. And there was just, it wasn't well. It didn't.
Good old NFTs.
It didn't function well between the CEO and the developer. So I guess this is their branching off into their own separate thing now, right? It looks like.
Yeah. No, and what I love the most is exactly how they highlighted exactly their approach to community building, right? Like right on their answers, they highlighted community, and I'll quote them on this. Community is a huge part of our plans. We plan to collect feedback and bug reports from our players and make it part of our daily development cycle. And that was that stood out to me. They're seeing this as a world that has to be cohesively built in real time with having the community involved. It's similar to platforms that are trying to get communities, but they're going after, we built everything, we'll polish it up, then we'll let the community come in, which I personally don't believe is the right way of building community, right? I truly believe that's why VR Chat has one of the most hardcore communities out there, is because they have seen that platform crash and burn, rebuild, and crash and burn and rebuild. Same thing with Roblox and all these other platforms. So I wanted to ask what you guys thought about Resonite and what the chat thinks most of all too.
For me at least, I mean, I didn't play a lot of Neos, but when I did play Neos, like Skiva and there was like Turk, a couple people took me through Neos, what's possible, and it's insane. It's like, I don't know, VR chat on crack. Like, so in VR chat, you can't take items, like you don't have like an inventory system. You can't take items from one world to another. But in Neos, you have not only an inventory system, you can bring props, but the props have so much details to them. Like there's one prop where you can, you have a Pokeball and you can make your friends super tiny and they're in the Pokeball. But from the friend's perspective, they are actually, there's this crazy mechanics. There was a fart gun, which, I like little lowbrow, so that was funny to me. But the way...
Of course.
There were multiple types of farts. It wasn't just one, so it was programmed very well. But it's a very, like, even the maps that they had, the interaction level of the things you can do in there was insane. So I hope that it seems like they took the developers, the good ones from that over to this, and so I think it does have potential as long as they make the UI a lot better, because it was so intimidating and scary. Then it's got high hopes. I'm really going to be keeping an eye on this one.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned the object and interactability, because that's exactly, Skiva, funny enough, was also who took me on the Neos adventure and showed me, and if I were, and I'd say this,
you must have stuck in
it. Oh, dude, it's like
I can't 75% of this podcast has been like.
I know if he's listening to this podcast, like I know he knows a lot about Resonite. So
he said I think he's watching from Resonite right now. I think that's what he said earlier. Anyway, I gotta scroll up.
Get me in there, Kiva, get me in there. So
me too.
Yeah, seriously, get us. I want to do. We should do the next podcast for Resonite. That'll be dope. But one of the cool things that stuck out to me from Neos, and I'm very excited to see it happen again in Resonite, is exactly everything digital has physical interactability. Everything that you see is an asset that can be redistributed, taken, and copied, and remorphed into your use. I remember meeting developers. I think there were Neos developers that were helping Skiva, showing me around, and I remember I had like a basic avatar, and they were like, "No, we need you with something a little bit more, dope." And I'm not making this up. The dude, it looked like he was reaching into his coat pocket, and I like,
what a pen.
He reaches in and pulls out a zip file. I kid you not.
I thought it was something else.
I know it sounds great, but it's like a briefcase, and it looks like a zip file, like the icon, the little zipper line on the folder, and he held it up, and he's like, "Here you go." And so I grabbed that zip file, and when I hold it, I see an option that says extract and copy to your inventory. I extracted the zip file physically, and there in my inventory is my avatar, and that's the cool, right?
Did you get after zipping it? Did you get like a notification from WinRAR saying if you have to buy?
Yes. Not WinRAR. That'll be awesome. WinRAR shows up in front of him. He's like, "Hey, what's up? Been waiting for you." But you actually get you see the mechanics behind it, because you see the little progress bar at the corner of the extract happening. It's really cool. And I did all this while one of the guys was flying a life-size scale of the Pelican from Halo, like the giant ship that they use. Yeah. And I was like walking around, the guy's like flying it, and he's like, "Dude, you want to see something cool?" And he flew that Pelican into a different world that turns out to be the home world from Kingdom Hearts 1, Destiny Islands, for my nerds who know what that is. And he showed me that, and I was telling him how much I love Tron, and then he pulled out a Tron motorcycle. So now I'm riding the Tron motorcycle in this island while there's a Halo Pelican flying over it.
There's so much you could do. There's mountable stuff. People have made like a dog that you can ride. There's this. I swear, I think there was a couple times where I tried to show friends Neos, and we didn't even end up world hopping. I just would go through the inventory and pull out random items and be like, "Look what this does," and then we would just play with random stuff. Like we wouldn't even look at the world. It's just like, "Look what this thing does." I did too. Before we go on further, wanted to give a shout out to Vexner3, who was amazing, gave us a super chat, and Said project idea for VR vets. Tracking advancement of virtual reality hardware and software as we approach parity with human thresholds. Each sense has their own chart to track VR. I'm trying to figure out what HWS
Hardware software.
Oh, hardware software. To parity over time to perfect VR can reach in lifetime. To perfect VR. Sorry,
I like that.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that one.
Yeah, I think what project idea for VR vets, tracking advancements of virtual reality hardware and software as we approach parity. So I think what they're talking about is one-to-one parity with tracking. That's one of the biggest misconceptions with VR. We can highlight that, and as we lead into our first topic, the accessibility to parity for tracking. Tracking technologies have existed. It's just hard to see in home consumer VR, right? Because the hardware isn't accessible. There's a lot of metrics and technology, which leads us into our first news topic, Varjo. Varjo, actually. I say Varjo because of the J, but it's Varjo, announces their price cuts. I believe they're now at sub 1,000 for the...
Yeah, it was like 50% off, like 1990 to 990, and I was like, did I read this right? This is comparable with like Valve Index if you need the whole kit, But is it Varjo? Do they use base stations or they're base stations?
They're base station tracked, yeah, and they also use probably one of the most at the time, right? That's the reason the prices are coming down, because at the time this was the only way for you to get really good pancake lenses and pretty much the graphical layering that you're going to be able now to see on a affordable MetaQuest 3. And that's the reality, is that these hardware, they're just really inaccessible for seeing tracking parities. They use base stations, right? That's, as you mentioned, Adam. So you're going to get the best style of tracking. So it's important that, it's hard to say that we want to see a world like that when it exists. It's just, you need a big bank account.
Yeah, different use cases, different audiences. Like some people are just going to want to jump in, and some people want the best of the best. So I think it can be good to have the different options as long as we don't go too crazy with it. I don't know. I guess I don't know, because at the same time, more is always good. It just depends on how much work you're willing to put into the thing that you want, the best graphics or whatever is the smoothest frames. You're going to have something that maybe can do an okay job right away. Or if you're willing to spend more money and do a bunch of tweaking in software, then you can.
Yeah, that's so important to highlight too, Adam. It's developers also have a lot of control with fine-tuning tracking, right? The fine-tuning tracking, it's very difficult when tracking is kind of considered software agnostic in some cases. So you don't have that fine tuning that you can do with software. Really going after, as described in our super chat, that it goes after training or a very hyper specific use case. And that leads me to a question for you guys. How much are you willing to pay for a high-end headset? Like something that actually gives you the hyper precise tracking and hyper precision visuals. Like, for example, the Varjo was 12,000 I think originally, and now it's 900. Is that
and the Crystal's like 1,600. I see, but I'm not willing to go through the headache of crappy setup. If I have to fight this thing just to get it to even be detectable by my computer when it really should, DisplayPort, USB-C. If that doesn't get it to be discoverable on my computer, then I don't care about, the high-end graphics. I just want it to work so I don't have to cry on Reddit and Google for hours trying to figure out what's wrong. So I think to me, the setup or just, the plug and play is going to be more important to me than the graphics, honestly. Like I just want in. So it's hard to put a price on it.
I think there's a little bit you have the law of lesser returns, as you approach, the optimal situation more and more, you'll see the amount of effort you need to put in to still get an improvement is so large that, it's very easy if you start from the bottom up, you do a little bit of improvement and, your resolution shoots up. If you go from, 100 pixels to 1,000 pixels, that difference is enormous. But if you go from 100,000 pixels to 1,000,000 pixels, that difference is not really there anymore. So there's a little bit that Pareto principle, right? The 80-20 rule, where you need to put in what's like 80% of the effort to get still 20% of the improvement, and eventually that's gonna get less and less and less and less. So I don't know if I'd be willing to actually invest in something like that if I can get something cheaper that gives me maybe 80% of the quality of that, just because the quality is so high, while I would have to invest far less into that. I think there's other things like software related, or maybe games, or business productivity, efficiency, that I would like to see improved far more. Of course, that's not something that Varjo will do, but I think that those are things, for me personally, that would be more important than like a really high, very specific kind of headset, because I know that, if I wait just a little bit longer, those technologies will become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and eventually they'll become standard. And I don't think I really need to invest in that right now, just in general.
Yeah. There's no returns. It's so true. I've been thinking a lot about that. There's two things that probably that I come to my mind first. It's field of view and eye tracking. Those are two technologies that sound so important to a core headset functionality until you start looking at software as a developer or an engineer. The reality is that most VR development is designed with head tracking from a software perspective. They're not using APIs for eye rendering and all this stuff. And so they could replicate the same, graphical cheats that they would apply to eye tracking by just anchoring that to your head. So eye tracking at that point now is rendered useless unless you're building software for eye tracking, and most eye tracking software isn't really designed for games unless you do something like I forgot the name of it for PSVR with the blinking stuff, but it's not as important for value added proposition for a device, in my opinion. And field of view is the same thing, right? I hear people always try to make arguments, and Adam might have something to say about that with a review upcoming. With the Pimax, I'm personally not a big fan. And the more I've been, more focused on smaller form factor headsets, I think a lot about field of view, because field of view can actually be solved with something like eye tracking, right? Because now you can have receptors that can anticipate where your eye is going to look at, and thus refresh the environment to ensure that encompasses what you're going to be looking at. So then now the eye field of view is kind of resolved instead of having a giant panel over your face. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. But
nice.
Up next, Adam, take it away with which is perfect lead into this, your Pimax Crystal review.
Yay! All right, let me bring all this big old sucker. So for those of you who probably may not have seen one, hold on. I'm gonna work out the guns while I'm here. I have to make sure I'm also in frame, because you're probably not gonna be able to see the whole thing. But yes, Pimax Crystal, big O headsets, big O FOV, big resolution. The gist of this headset is it's 2080 or 2880 by 2880 pixels per eye, powered by mini LED 12K display. So there's a couple interesting things about this headset. I'm sorry, I can't hold it the whole time because, it's a little hefty. But
that's a big chunky boy. Yeah. Whew.
What is interesting about this headset is they decided to do PC VR option and standalone. So I'll touch on maybe the just general graphics and resolution, my opinions of that first before I kind of dive into the individuals. But so I will say, visual wise, it is sharp. It's sharp. Text is so clear. The colors look great on it. So Pimax is doing what they're good at. Visuals. That's probably my highlight of the headsets, and maybe a couple more, but we're going to see that I had some issues with it. Kind of like what you mentioned, though, Jose, even though it does have a wide FOV, it's 170 horizontal, 200 diagonal, I believe. So like wide angle lens look. Personally, to me, that doesn't make as big of a difference to me compared to the resolution. Like, I like the sharpness and the clarity. plus, if for me, at least I'm going to be basing off of my version, so anyone else may have had different results with theirs. But if you do look kind of, move to the corners, it still seems blurry anyway, and I tend to not look like that far to the side. Certain games I had that, chromatic abbreviation. Certain games, though, not all of them, which was, I'm not sure why. Refresh rate, you can do 90 or 120. I guess for reference, my PC is a 3070. I've got a Ryzen 7 CPU and 32 gigabytes of RAM. So at 120, I didn't have any issues. But what I did notice, kind of like if you've had experience with the PSVR 2 and Call of the Mountain, when you're still, things are very sharp. But for me, if I were to start moving around, I almost had that motion blurry effect to things that I didn't like. And this also seemed to be kind of game dependent too, which was weird. And I couldn't really figure out why. There were a lot of kind of annoying inconsistencies and whys with this headset. Sometimes it would work great in games. Sometimes it would randomly make Steam VR crash. Sometimes the display would just get frozen, but the game and Steam VR was still running. And this could be within the same game, within different games. I could never really pinpoint the whys. And not to keep going down a complainy thing about it, but setting this up was, I don't have much hair now, but was hair pulling. And so they have, a little tiny, little quick guide, cute little this thing. And it's okay, just plug, display port, USB-C. They also give you, at least the one that I had, a powered USB hub to kind of make it a little easier with different international, plugins for your country. And so, cool. I downloaded their Pimax Play software.
Can you show the
device? Did not detect
one more
headset.
time? I'm
Yes.
just gonna put you a bit.
Let me
bigger.
Yeah. So,
Man, that is a big. It's so weird because you always see it online, but seeing it compared to your hands. Wow. Yeah, that's a huge headset.
Trying to take a thumbnail with this thing was very awkward. I'm like, how do I look good in this? I mean, it's not a bad looking headset, but it's just big,
Yeah.
And I feel like the face cushion needs to be different or my head's too small because the back knob doesn't quite go all the way. I have it as tight as it'll go, but I feel like the faceplate could sit against my face better. And that's also another problem I had. Yeah, because then there's so much wiggle room in the front because it's not really touching completely. So the sweet spot is kind of moving around a lot, and it is one of those kind of sweet spot.
Does it still light up on the front? I was
gonna say.
I don't think so, because when I haven't really looked at myself with it on,
of course,
but I don't think it does.
I always
don't think
that.
So.
It looked kind of badass, like Predator style,
Mm-hmm.
I know the thing about Pimax for me, it's for what you're describing and the issues that you said that you don't know where the software. It's very hard to quality assure with so different titles, but. I don't really know if you know this, but I remember original Pimax, and you mentioned there was a software involved. Do you know if the Pimax software is upscaling the game into?
So another thing that's confusing, they used to use PyTool, the software PyTool, but now they're moving over to Pimax Play. But I don't think they've completely moved everything over yet. If you need help in something, all of the references refer to PyTool. And it's but they want Pimax Play now. And so even things like, going back to even just the setup, after I unplugged and replugged the USB-C display port, any other port that I could, tried without the hub, with the hub, you know what it was? There's this little extender port that is, sorry, I got caught in my lady chest there. There's a little extender port on here that they use because it's really, I can't even show you. It's awkward to get the port. It's plugged into the
because it's using the original.
And so when I plugged it into the extender, it wasn't reading that for some reason. So I just had to bypass the extender and just plug it directly into the headset, and then boom, it worked. But now I have this, I think you can remove it, but I'm like, why did you even have this? This adds more weight to something that I'm not even going to use. And now I've got a weird extra cable that's just hanging out there, so I've got to figure out if I can take that out. But it also
these guys
puts
are buying like all the parts from HTC. it's like that's exactly the cable. That's the DisplayPort interface for the Vive Pro 2.
It puts like a almost kind of worrying kind of kink up here too. Like it's hard to see it, but the way that you have to kind of remove the facial interface in order to plug this thing in. And so once you have it back in, it sort of not kinks it, but it puts like, I could see like some, like the wires moving upwards a little more now. So I don't know what that's going to do.
It's so funny you mentioned that. So I wish I could show you if I would have known you were to talk about that. But the original Vive and the Vive Pro suffer from this. And it's because the interface is right on the right side of the headset. So when you wiggle just enough of that cable, if your cable gets removed from the back hook, it could yank out from the actual motherboard. So this is their way of avoiding that. So they just fixed a physical vulnerability of the original Vive and Vive Pro, which confuses me. What exactly is Pimax's goal? Like, are they in the business of trying to cannibalize HTC's hardware? Or are they building hardware for a specific use case? Because calling it Pimax Play worries me. I never seen the Pimax, and I love Pimax. I love their hardware, like their visuals. But I always saw their hardware as training. Like, I don't like the idea of telling any gamer to put on that giant headset.
Well, okay, going back to that, though, I also tried the standalone function, which really doesn't make sense to me because if you compare it to the Quest, which is way lighter, way smaller, way more portable, and I'm sure they're going to try to grow it, of course, so I can't knock them too much on this, but it's got there's 9 games total maybe in their store, or apps, not even games. Some of them were just art apps. I didn't see much reason to stick around with the standalone, especially for $1,600. If you want to get something like this that's heavy and doesn't have much on it just for standalone. And if they got rid of the standalone, I felt like maybe it could have made a cheaper kind of, if they fix some of the software bugs, decent PC VR headset. So it's kind of like, why? I have a lot of whys when it comes to this headset.
The 80-20 rule, like Rowdy said, it's so true. It really applies to this one. Man,
I don't understand. But otherwise, controllers are very questy. We kind of, I know some people maybe have had issues with tracking, but they worked fine to me. They pretty much worked instantly. Inside out tracking, so it's kind of what you expect for inside out tracking. Oh, the eye tracking, that's another sort of mini tangent that I wanted to go on. I didn't realize, so there's eye tracking built in, of course, but it wasn't actually, you couldn't actually use it until maybe a week ago. And I'm like, how long has this thing been out? And they're touting eye tracking, but it was, well, you could in beta, right? But it wasn't something that the normal user who just bought one expecting eye tracking could get. So finally they had a software update for eye tracking. Foveated rendering, which is supposed to work with any Steam VR game, not so much. So they have a dynamic foveated rendering option in the software that you can have different toggles of between balanced, extreme, none, what have you. It's not so simple as just clicking the thing and then thinking it'll work. They have actually a compatibility list for the games, which is quite short at the moment, which surprised me because, again, I thought they said it's supposed to work with most Steam VR games. But anyway, they also have a quad view foveated rendering now. But I would argue that's not for the casual VR user because you have to not only download Pimax Play, but the OpenXR Toolkit, Pimax XR, Windows OpenXR runtime. As soon as I looked into this, I was like, oh, I thought that it would just work. I didn't have to download all this third-party stuff.
To be fair, as far as I know, Pimax, I never owned a Pimax product and I never actually used one. But their devices are very much catered towards what I think is a very small niche audience of tinkerers who like to, who don't mind spending hours or days in perfecting their setup to then have something that they just, once they have everything set up, then it works. They have the best quality they can get. If you can get that with this device, I don't know, but I do think this is not a headset probably for a casual gamer or
No.
for
No.
someone who
No.
just
Definitely
wants to
not.
try out VR, but this is for someone who really likes a very specific type of game, or like, for example,
Simulation,
flight simulator,
yeah.
or like whatever it is,
Yeah.
and they want, you know, a tool that improves their setup, and they don't mind spending hours and even maybe like coding themselves specific kind of things to make it interact with whatever other device that they have, or using toolkits or whatever. So I do think that the audience that they're aiming for is very different compared to what you would have with, for example, the Quest.
That's fair, but I feel like they aren't marketing it necessarily
course.
that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, oh,
No, they're
anyone,
not.
you know, gamers maybe.
No, yeah, no.
Sort of thing.
The only thing when I see that headset, and now that we know, and we talked about it last podcast, that now that we know that headsets are going to be moving to having like dual CPU architectures, I think Pimax might accidentally, unironically end up having probably the best form factors for these super giant spatial computers that are going to be running on your head, and they're going to require so much cooling.
But they'll do something like a Quest comes out with like 2 CPUs, and they're like, we have 16. Like,
Yo, can you imagine? Pimax comes out with one that just wraps around your entire head.
But yeah, I feel bad to kind of rag on it too much, but it's definitely, it was a lot of work. But they do deliver on visuals. Like I said, it's really, textures were so crispy and text was sharp. Yeah, I was like, but you know, at the end of the day, whenever I would go through some longer form testings, just because it wouldn't quite fit on my head right, or things would crash, or at one point I even had these weird like white grain boxes just pop in. I was like, oh, that's kind of something's going on there. I would just go back to my index because I know I put it on, it's going to fit right. This, you know, everything's going to be sharp immediately when I put it on. Things aren't going to crash. Like, it was just, you know, old faithful versus like, let's try the Pimax and hope this session goes well, sort of a thing for me. But yeah, tinkerers, I can definitely imagine liking something like this. And I know it's very popular with like Elite Dangerous flight sim kind of people. And I apologize, but my camera keeps deciding to die on me, so I'll keep fixing that. But
Pimax
yeah,
gods don't like this. They don't approve.
Yeah, so this I feel like there's a lot of fat they could have also cut from the headset, just in terms of functions. Like, just get rid of the standalone, get rid of the, you know, maybe find a better spot for the display port. You don't need this extender. Oh, and also the audio, the over-ear audio, that's an additional. Mine happened to come with it, but I believe it's like $100 extra. And if you want the base station lighthouse faceplate, that's an additional like $200 or something. I tried to see if I could get my trackers working with something like OpenVR Space Calibrator, but when I read the fine print, I was like, oh shoot, that only works with Oculus drivers, so I couldn't get it. I couldn't find any like workarounds for this yet. But so yeah, it's nice. I don't know.
Still a cool headset. I don't think you ragged on it very much. I think you were just honest. I think it's a cool headset. It's just, I wouldn't play Half-Life on it.
Yeah, it's not for me. I just want something that I don't have to tinker around with, you know?
I mean, I do love tinkering, but like, not when I want to play a game.
Yeah. Tinkering when you want to tinker, not when you just want to put it on and expect it to work.
Yeah, I'm like that too.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I agree. I always see the Pimax and the Varjo. These headsets, I always saw them as like the high-end headsets that developers target, and then they downscale as they're ready to port it to other devices. I never saw it as the headset that you actually target or build something for. Like, it's very interesting. But yeah, thank you so much, Adam, for that review, and hopefully some simmers can make the Pimax Crystal shine, because it would be cool to see. And last we have MetaConnect. We have next week, they're doing their announcement, but at the same time, we all know this. There's a lot of people dealing with the FOMO right now. They have been hyper careful when he gets to go to the Connect event and who doesn't. It looks like a lot of people are upset about that, but I kind of woke up with this thought the other day. Isn't that exactly what we should be expecting from future MetaConnects? And also know what you guys think.
So as someone who had never been to physical MetaConnect, kind of sad about it. How big physically are these events? Like, where does it usually take place? Do they have like not vendors, but like maybe game developers actually set up booths? Is it like a show floor?
So I mean, the MetaConnects or the Oculus Connects that I've been to, because I've never been to a MetaConnect. I don't think there's ever been a MetaConnect. So
no, not yet. No.
The Oculus Connects, like they had. I mean, the last one was where I saw they were making a switch, and I think we talked it because we did a podcast back there as well with the FReality crew back then, and we talked that we felt that they were aiming more for a business direction, which then makes sense as well when they released their new Quest device, the Quest Pro, afterwards. And I think the first one that I went to, which I think was 4. I think I went to 4, the first one. 4 and 5. Oculus Connect 4 and 5 were the ones I went to. The 4 one was amazing because they were really heavily focused on that gaming industry. They had a huge onward competitive scene that was going on. They had massive booths on the stage where people were playing Onward against each other, and they had like a casting team, and they had a few other games that were there being played competitively as well. They had awards that were there at the team that won like $25,000 or whatever it was, and then you had game developers on different booths where you could try out, like the new Oculus titles that were coming out. I don't remember anymore, which I know I played Asgard's Wrath, but I think that was at the last one, the Oculus Connect 5. And also, how's their other one called again? Well, whatever. They played, they would use like their big titles that were coming out on these kind of events. And then you had, pretty much every Oculus developer, who was making VR titles would be on the show floor as well. Sometimes they had official booths, but oftentimes you had this big hallway where you had like, a buffet of food every day. You had the Meta breakfast that is probably so famous because that's what their employees get every time. You had a Starbucks booth in there that was just like you get like free Starbucks the entire time. So I mean, they really didn't look at anything like your food trucks and everything is in there. And then you just like spoke to developers who made their new game and they would show it to you. They had I don't know, like maybe 60 to 100 influencers that were invited that would just like, like show off, their experience. They even had like, I think they even paid for some bigger YouTubers to come there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just to make videos on the event itself who were not VR YouTubers. And then,
I wonder if it's a money thing then, like maybe that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a lot of spending.
I don't think it's a money thing. It's because I think they have so much money. I don't think they really care much about that. I think it's more about wanting to change directions a little bit. Because I still feel like they feel like they have the gaming industry tied down. That everyone who wants to play VR games plays them on the Quest. That's the device to go to. So I feel like the effort that they've put back then kind of pays off now with like their device being the most prominent VR gaming device. So I think now they feel a little bit more pressure coming from other companies like Apple or like other companies that are more aiming at like maybe a business direction. So they want to make their events a little bit less gaming focused, a little bit more focused on, the social media aspect of it being Facebook still, it being Meta. So I think that's the direction they're going. I noticed that the last couple of Connects already, even with the influencers that they are inviting, it's not really that much gaming focus. There's still going to be gaming sections, but they're very much watered down compared to what they once were, in my experience.
Okay. It's like an expansion then.
Yeah.
Or like expansion, but not with size, but just genre, I guess, type.
I think so, yeah.
I agree, and it's so interesting because at the same time, and Rowdy, I sent you the link for this. This is an article from a few days ago where Meta is actually amplifying their employees to get back into their offices. Here's a Business Insider article. I'll read the headline for you guys. Meta is bolstering perks like happy hours and company swag as it pushes staff to return to office, despite its year of efficiency. So to highlight, it looks like the tech giant has revived employee perks, They're looking at company merch and snack bars. I saw something that I don't see if it's in this article or one, but I believe that they said they have LaCroix water fountains being installed.
Oh.
What is that? Wait! I'm still too much of a European to know what that is. Explain what this is.
LaCroix is LaCroix. It's sparkling drink flavored water. It's sparkling water, but it's flavored.
You know what?
Why is that special? That's you can just buy that in any.
For some reason, America thinks it's fancy special water. I don't know why. It's like the bougie. Like yeah, I don't know why it's so highly requested. I don't understand it either. I'm from this country. Flavor.
Okay.
I don't know.
But what I found funny is that the I'm gonna highlight it here. So it says the perks included branded T-shirts. Very. I would really love to have that. Happy hours,
pajamas,
laundry services, and free haircuts. And then the picture they used of Mark was this one. And I'm like, is he using the free haircut service already?
Mark is cutting people's hair himself.
What is going on there?
Oh no! Do you think that they did the same? Do you think Mark did the same thing that they did with the guy who painted the mural? You know how like Facebook early days they paid a guy for a mural in stock. Maybe they got a barber that was like, "Yo, we'll pay you in stock if Meta becomes a billionaire." And so this guy's learning as he goes.
Having some of the services is cool, but I know as somebody who has received like branded merch instead of raises, like you get like, here you've been at the company for 10 years. There's a water bottle with your name on it, and it's like, oh my god, what this money could have gone towards more money towards my salary. Like,
I'm high right now.
To be fair though, I think that Meta salaries are probably pretty good though.
Yeah, they're pretty.
I think if I had that salary, I'd be happy with a T-shirt too.
I was about to say, like, if it was like that, I'd be like, yo, my company competed with Meta. Yo, we got shirts. I'll do laundry. I'll give y'all haircuts. Like, if it's not about the salary, I just want happy hours. Like, come on in. I got you. Yeah. That's funny.
I'm not gonna lie. I love these kind of things. Like, I do think that they make things more fun. Like if you get funny perks. I mean, again, of course, the salary is most important, but I'm pretty sure that, like, considering the hiring process of a company like Meta, if you get in there, you can get a job pretty much anywhere. So they're paying their employees, or at least, I mean, I don't know, which employees get these benefits, but I'm pretty sure they pay all their employees a pretty premium kind of salary. I think the happy hour and the shirts, it's more for like, creating a community, because that's still what Meta is about, and doing that on the work floor as well, that you belong to the family of Meta, or whatever it is, like all that American kind of like we're part
and Meta offices are here in Miami, so their happy hours get lit. Like I know where they be at.
I honestly think that's a very smart idea. If you want to bring people back to the office, you need to create a fun office environment. And just increasing the salary is not going to bring people back. I think these kind of things are probably smarter. I don't think this is a bad decision. Like, I would go back to the office if there was a happy hour,
Yeah, honestly, I'm thinking about it now too. It's like, what would incentivize me to consider even that kind of old school company? Because I truly believe that, and that's the reason I brought it up, and I wanted to make it a new subject, because it's so weird how people have expectations from a social interaction focused company to have any kind of public facing or rather on-site infrastructure, let alone running the company in that approach. But maybe Meta might be rolling back on that reality where the metaverse includes real life.
Yeah, and I saw that. I just saw that Substatic guy gave like a good comment, and I completely agree with that. I think he says that the perks are likely better value for morale than distributing that same money into direct compensation. And I think that's exactly what Meta knows what they're doing. They probably have an entire psychology team on board that like says like how we're going to bring people back to the office. And they've done like 40 studies, and they realized that this is probably. I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing.
The data in that, if they did a questionnaire, that data is like happy hour.
What would bring you back in the office? And then like
Yeah, that's so true. Man, that's That's a good way of and I guess last question would be, do you guys have any like last minute Meta Connect expectations or something you want to see from the event?
I mean, like, I'm gonna say probably what I said before is like I like they have the gaming section pretty much tied down. On the business side of things, I would like them to come out with something spectacular. Like really that you see now, like, oh wow, you see the application of this. Like we all saw the Apple keynote where of course what they were showing was a little bit of a dream. And Facebook has done that before as well. But if they actually come out with a product that you can like, if you have a Meta Quest Pro or maybe even, well, I don't think the Meta Quest, but if you have the Pro device, this is what you can do with it right now. And something that really like, sparks it off. I don't think per se this is already going to happen, but that would make me super excited about it. Yeah, for sure.
Same. What about you, Adam?
I don't know about super excited, but I have predictions that I'm sure we're going to see a ton of like AR related stuff, a lot of mixed reality, everything. I don't know whether that's going to be I guess it's going to lean mostly in gaming, but there's a potential for it to lean also in more, businessy or some kind of even medical potentially. I just can't see quests going into something as quote unquote serious as like the medical field, maybe business at most for meetings and whatever, which they've kind of tried. So I don't know. I know I'm almost guaranteed that we're going to hear about the Quest coming at Quest 3 available for pre-order come MetaConnect, probably available shortly after. Mm-hmm. But I don't really know what else to expect other than the AR, a lot of AR stuff. I mean, I'm biased in that I find all the business stuff kind of boring. No offense, Rowdy. And that would make sense for them to mix it up a little and not have so much gaming. But, my personal preferences will always be games and what else, different technology and stuff comes out for it. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I would say, funny enough, I think I stand weirdly enough a little bit with what Rowdy said. I think what I would love to see from Meta is if they're going to pay attention to the enterprise professional space like medical, Adam, I think what they need to do is really solidify the pro part of the Quest Pro. I think this will be a good opportunity for them to say, hey, and this, I said this in private with some colleagues and they almost roasted me at the stake, but I think that this is an opportunity to build a new store. And it's scary to say that because Meta has the way they run their stores are very intense and rigorous, but I think a enterprise or a business store, even having its own email account or something like that would be really cool to kind of see the space moving that way, because truth of the matter is there are companies, and I mentioned, and funny enough, they reached out to me, Arbor XR, Manage XR, I mentioned them last week, that are doing the work out there and connecting with the companies that are building, the flagship products and software for enterprise and commercial, but you don't see them in the App Store. You're lucky if you could find them on App Lab, right? They're actually directly sending the APKs to their customers, right? So it would be cool to see that kind of start getting centralized in a way that the people who are building this software feel in power and not cannibalized by a platform like Meta.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, okay, I thought about this as you were saying. That's kind of not directly related, but I want to see more use, and this probably makes more sense during COVID time, but like connections, like the benefit of VR headset in connect, and not only just business meetings. Like they always show the boring stuff, but maybe you're talking to a long distance friend. They'd probably use Horizon Worlds as their example, unfortunately, which I don't think would be the best, but it makes sense because it's meta. But showing how useful VR can be in that physical presence of, you're actually getting to meet your friends from different states far away, or if you're in a long distance relationship, you kind of get to maybe have some semblance of being physical together, something like that. Like I'd love to see more of on the social side of it. That's not as weirdly gimmicky as some of the Horizon stuff has been, or maybe then vast improvements to Horizon to make it, I don't know. I'm not sure what would make it better. Maybe not so cartoonish, childy, even though it's for adults. Like, I don't know.
And do you think you will get to see GTA?
No.
I'm going to say yes.
Interesting.
And it's weird because I would have said no, but I think this is time. I think it's time. We have Tokyo Game Show going crazy this week. I was talking to some buddies that mentioned this. It's Half-Life was shown during this season for the first time because I remember that because this is, for me, my personal professional life, it's IAPA season, and that's leading up to commercial and enterprise VR being really big on the news. So if we're going to see anything with games or flagships for the next year, I think it's going to be now. So I hope we see it. And leading that up to our last bit here with Adam, who's closing in the show with brush of gold, as we say, with releases. So Adam, take it away.
Yeah. So I believe we've got 3 here for you. The first one is Islanders VR, which is coming out September 28th for the Quest. This game's been out on flat screen for some time. It's basically a minimalist strategy game about building cities on colorful islands, and your goal is to populate and enrich each island with your creations, and you unlock new buildings as you go. So very calming, minimalistic simulator game. Not like a I don't want to say a watered down SimCity because that sounds mean, but like a easier SimCity. Calming, more zen SimCities kind of a game. But that's going to be
funny you said. I'm glad you said you don't want to call it watered down SimCity because it's mean, but that's exactly what I thought of as.
Because it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's it's like not as micromanagey intense. Like look out for all of the natural disasters ever. But yeah, September 28th on the Quest, $13.99 US dollars, 11.43 pounds, and that's for Islanders VR.
Nice.
Next up, we have I just love good old sports ball. NFL Pro Era 2. Yeah. This is going to be out for Quest and PC VR the 28th. There's going to be an online 11v11 multiplayer and a revamped career mode. So for those of you who love sports ball, American football, that's going to be sports ball. I'm like, I don't know crap about football. It's probably good, I guess. NFL, you've probably heard of it. September 28th, Quest PC VR, $29.99. Yeah.
How must this be in VR? Like, because if I looked at They showed this this guy, like the trailer is literally like a guy jumping around and like swirling like a towel around or something, and
it's
it has
a quarterback simulator.
Yeah, but then it has like 15 seconds of actual gameplay or something. No, not even like 6 seconds of like actual gameplay. But like I really wonder how do you run?
It's a pass simulator, so. It's not really, you don't really run as much. What you're doing, it's I don't know what the sequel is going to do, but think about the first few seconds of a football game, like when the quarterback gets the ball, you throw it, you pass it, you might get tackled. So all of what happens within those few seconds, that's the actual game. So they scale that out for you. That's the first version of the game. I don't know what they're doing with the second one. I do know that the first one does have some active development, like they added multiplayer, but it's still those same calls. But so you're doing just a quarterback.
Like I'm gonna show the clip again, and they show in the beginning. There's this guy, like you could see the heads. I mean, I don't know if they do it on purpose just to make it seem more, but you can see him like literally like running in. Like
that's new. Yeah, that's actually a new thing. I think that's why they're calling it NFL. That's why they're calling it a sequel, because it makes no sense to make that part of the original game. The original game, you do have some momentum, you can move, but you're not really playing as a football player. You're not a wide receiver. You're the quarterback. So you get just the move to throw the ball, the passes, you make the calls. It's not as in-depth as you imagine. I don't know if the second one might actually take it to the next level, and eventually NFL, that might just be straight up called a Madden NFL game, because now you have player control. You can also have the quarterback. You can select plays. It's really cool the way that they're going about this. Is that they're building a core mechanic that works, which is really close to the real experience, and then they're emulating that as they go.
I saw that Will Moss said, but Rowdy, that is what American football is. It's little 10 seconds bursts. It's okay. I take everything back. I mean, I don't know anything about that sport.
Anyway, September 28th, Quest, PCVR, $29.99 US or 24.50 pounds. That is NFL Pro Era 2 Sports Ball.
Sports Ball.
And then finally, we've got the last one, which is Out of Hand. This is sort of expanded, I like to call it expanded Gorilla Tag. It's a platforming adventure game. Has sort of the same ability where you're just a ball with arms, and you have to go through these different platforming things. If you think that's creepy, let me read the description that was in the store page because I thought it was interesting. It's due to not being dumb enough, you have been selected for immediate termination. Not like fired gone, more like dead gone. To save yourself and your brethren, you must platform, jump, bounce, and punch your way through the evil doctor's laboratory with your very long arms to take him down and all his baddies. Yeah, so that's
okay,
that's
the
out of hand.
gameplay looks fun though.
It's smart. It's smart to leverage on the Gorilla Tag mechanics because it's Gorilla Tag, but if you want something other than monkeys and maybe has a storyline and more maps, then just try Out of Hand. So I think it's genius for them to release this when they have. Super cool.
And also the mechanic. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a part there's a breakable floor block, and they slam their hands on the floor as they're falling to break through. Yeah. It just looks super silly and fun because it's just good. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. One of my favorite things for VR is just sitting I know people hate the screeching kids in VR, but I really believe that's the DNA. Oh, exactly. So I love to interact with that. So I can already see holiday season kids just flailing like crazy and smacking each other, and I'm here for it, man.
You can have a bunch of kids with huge arms, just big buff kids, VR kids.
Oh no! Oh, dude!
Big buff kids.
Yo, can you imagine that? They tell your
only upper body only.
Your kid is. We're gonna have to tell you. We're gonna give you advice. You should probably not let your kid play Gorilla Tag in VR anymore.
Anyway, Out of Hand, September 28th, out on the Quest. It's gonna be $19.99 US and about 16.33 pounds. So go get your Gorilla Tag fix, or if you want to try something that's not Gorilla Tag but kinda, you've got Out of Hand to look forward to.
Let's go. All right, are you guys ready to end this show?
Hell yeah.
So chat. Cheers for being here to those of you in chat today. Before we go back to dream about the upcoming Meta Connect, so we'd like to reflect on any final thoughts, chat. Let us know as I read the final and say the Zim's last closing notes.
No one missed Zim.
I miss you, Zim. Don't listen.
Send him some love, jail stuff.
And make sure you mention me at those Meta Connect happy hours. The FReality Podcast sets off fortnightly, runs every other Saturday on YouTube and Twitch. So this brother podcast goes live at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. in the UK. So for all your listeners on Spotify, SoundCloud, and the everlasting iTunes that get their dues midweek following the live show, thanks to you guys, you legends. So thank you guys again.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.